everyone.
Good evening and welcome to the Monomoy Regional School Committee meeting. Today is Wednesday, June 26th. This meeting will be broadcast to Channel 22 as well as live streamed and recorded to the MRSC YouTube channel. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 6:30. The first item on our agenda is the approval of minutes. The first set is May 23rd, 2024, as presented in our packet. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
The next item is the June 13th, 2024 minutes. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Next, we'll move on to public comment. Do we have anyone here for public comment? Seeing none, we would like to say welcome to our new member, Free Rose. Welcome to the committee. And if you have any questions for any one of us, please feel free. And Tina, were you going to reach out to her?
I am, Bree. I would like to be, if you will accept me, as your mentor.
Absolutely.
Coming on board, and we'll get together and, yeah. Bree is from Harwich, so, yeah, welcome.
Welcome. We're so happy you're here. Next up is reports and discussions. The first item is the first reading of policy files DJA, purchasing policy, credit card program, IHBA, programs for students with disabilities.
They may be a little bit out of order.
Okay. Mr. Schick?
Yes, the policy committee, we reviewed the purchasing policy with the credit card program last evening, and we made some changes to it. Michael, are you going to be going through it?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm happy to. Michael McMillan, School Business Manager. Thank you very much. I presented to the Policy Review Committee last night this new policy. So this is not an amendment, but a new policy. So that's why it's just the first reading for the district to get a credit card to be able to make purchases for where it's not possible to pay with a purchase order. So almost at the moment, all our purchases, we first issue a purchase order to the vendor, and with that gives them the reassurance to provide the services to us, and once they've provided this as service, we then pay for it. They invoice us based on that purchase order, and we pay it. However, we run into situations occasionally, a few times a year, where the vendor won't accept a purchase order. So most often when that's happening is flights, hotels, and conferences. And so what then happens is, so we will work with the vendor, try and issue them a check if we can, so that it gets there in time to be able to book the place, or particularly with a conference, that's possible. But often they just won't, it's like an online booking a flight, it's not really the option to send them a check. So what happens is the members of staff are just booking them themselves and having to be reimbursed. And, part of the challenge with that is that they've booked it, then if they don't do it, and then they get the refund, and so if we've reimbursed them for the flight along the time, but then they don't do it and they get the refund, it becomes complicated. And also, if they've had to use a credit card, they've had to pay, there's a risk they've had to pay the interest on it and so on. So instead, this would allow us to be able to make that purchase on those few occasions when we're not able to use the purchase order process. And so we had a really good discussion about this last night in the Policy Review Committee, and it was suggested there that we restrict the use of the card, so it's just by the business office. So it'll really just be myself or my designee, which would be most likely the district accountant if I wasn't there. And really, so that's just, and I think that was a great outcome. I think the idea is we keep this on a really limited basis for now, very strictly controlled. And if we find, as we implement this over the next year or so, that actually that restriction is too tight, then we can always loosen it and look at different ways of controlling it. But if we start, it's always best, I think, and I agree, it's always best to start the most restrictive and the most restricted, and then from there you can vary it, but you don't want to start less restrictive and have to draw it back in. So I thought that was a good outcome from our discussion, and so this is a draft policy that we kind of finalised on yesterday.
Yeah, Madam Chair, if I can just, kind of jump onto that. I think that this is a good thing to be able to offer, because otherwise people who are going to be have to get reimbursed and have to put the money out to do it. That would prevent them from having to do it. And at the same time, by having this restriction on there, there's control over it, so that you're not going to be handing out a credit card to multiple people and having potentially all issues. So we thought that this, in our discussion, that it struck a really good balance of being able to do a good thing for people, but at the same time have that control.
I love that as a state employee. I love this with the P card. So I guess my question is, have you ever had a P card before, or do you have a P card before this policy?
No.
So we've never had, in this district, we've never had one. Okay.
Yeah. And so just to clarify for anyone who doesn't know, so a P card is a purchase card, which is it's to be honest, it's a lot like a credit card, but it's designed for municipalities so that there's greater control over it. You can set thresholds, you can set limits, you can go online and make different changes and say it's only for certain purposes or for certain amounts. So it just gives you a greater degree of control. And the idea is that you pay the balance before any interest is charged, so you're not paying interest on it, but you do pay a fee for the service. And it's through, so the Association of School Business Officials for the country sponsors one purchase card, and that's the one we would first look to getting. But I wanted to make the policy kind of agnostic as to which approach you went through, just in case, because Cape Cod 5 also provides some of those func services, so that might work out the best option for the district. So if we kind of approved this policy, then we would investigate the best approach which met our needs.
Okay. I think this is a good idea, because I agree with what Brad said. Not everybody can fork out X amount of dollars and wait 30, 60, 90 days. So I think this is a good idea.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. In terms of the policy for programs, students, and disabilities, as we proceed this year, there's going to be a number of policies that we're going to want to update, and we'll do that in a systematic fashion. This one here having to do with students with disabilities, and what it is adding on here is making sure that any videotaping is prohibited, but audio recordings can be on a case-by-case basis. And if this is, for instance, someone with special needs, or in terms of a language barrier, this way it could be very, very helpful to the family to be able to do this. But again, videotaping prohibited, but to add this, not as a rule, but to be reviewed on a case-by-case basis. And we, on the policy committee, thought that this was should be revised. It had been revised just a few years ago, and so we were good with this change.
Any questions? Okay. Thank you very much.
So these will come back to our
These will
next.
come back.
Yeah.
Yep. And next up is the mask resolution in support of rural schools.
Oh, that would be me.
Let's do that.
And just real quickly, if you don't mind, Madam Chair, just because Bree, this is your first meeting, so the two policies that we just reviewed will come back to our next meeting for a full vote. That's kind of our standard practice. Yeah. All right, so mask resolution. So in your packet, so I was in front, I think I did this at the May 9th meeting for those of you that were here. At that time, we still had an opportunity with the state budget to do some advocacy, because there is a rural schools aid bill that's given to rural schools. It's based on density. And so some, like, if you think about Western Mass and here on the Cape, you know, we've got like buses travel more. There's just a lot more that has to go out. So there is an attempt for the Massachusetts Association of School Committees at full funding. What that means, it's $60 million is the amount. And what that means is every school district in the Commonwealth that would classify as a rural school would get aid, like extra money from the state to cover certain things that are unique to rural schools. Having said that, the budget, the Senate and the House at the state, on the state level have approved their budgets. Now they're getting together and figuring out what budget, you know, what's going to go forward to the governor. Right now, the rural aids bill is set, they knocked it down to 17.5. So 60 million, 17.5. So the important thing for us to know is we are not, sadly, well, maybe not sadly, we're not as in dire need as some of our Western Massachusetts school districts, which might mean we get little, if nothing. But 60 million, if we could get it up to that level, it would help us all out. So in front of you tonight is a resolution, because now that we're finishing up FY25, the budget will go forward, we're going to start advocating for FY26. And we're going to push really hard for $60 million. So this is a resolution that we are asking rural school districts across the state to kind of get behind. And all this is if you agree in the advocacy efforts on the state level on our behalf, then I just need you to say yes. We're behind us. We'll put Monomoy Regional School District on the list of all the school districts that are in support of advocacy on the state level. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So all I need really is for you all to agree that you support. Yes, go ahead.
So it says potential votes. So do we need a formal vote on this, or do we just need a consensus?
A consensus would be fine.
Okay.
As long as we're all in agreement. If we kind of are not in agreement, that's where a vote is helpful and the majority would roll.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just a question
Sure.
in terms of what is the distinction between a consensus on a vote, but a consensus versus a vote?
There are certain things for a consensus vote. There are certain things we absolutely have to have a vote on, like the budget, different things like that, because we're required to have an accounting, I guess, of everybody's vote. But on something like this, if we're all in agreement and around the table and nobody's opposed, we can just move it by consensus. We can go either way. It honestly doesn't really matter. But sometimes if somebody is in a disagreement or not sure how they want to sit, then it's a majority, which means that somebody can abstain, somebody can say no, but it still moves.
Sure.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Absolutely. I just have a couple questions.
Sure.
And what percentage of the schools are, and I agree with you, I can understand Western Massachusetts being really very, very rural and a lot of regional schools and long bus rides. But what percentage of the school, Tina, are considered rural in the state?
You know, I should have come prepared for that to give you an exact number. It's roughly like right around 30%, 35%.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
That would make sense. And also, what's the criteria where they would choose, the reviewing for Monomoy or for any school in terms of determining what the funding would be, if any?
Yeah, so one is on density. So if you think about Berkshire County and a lot of those homes are so far out and buses are really having to go and pick kids up. And so that's one piece of it. The other is local tax revenue. I mean, we are considered, when you look at the rural school districts, the list, we're considered fairly wealthy based on the taxes that we're collecting. Whereas if you go out to Western Mass, that isn't always the case. I mean, you might go to Berkshire County, perhaps Lenox might be, their tax base might be higher than North Adams. I mean, if you were to compare.
Right.
So there is a tax base. So they look at the school districts that don't get as much locally, and they'll get more from the state.
And how much could the total package be?
If it all pushed forward, it would be $60 million as a whole, and then that would be distributed based on those two criteria I was telling you. So we would get an amount of money, maybe not as much as another town, but right now we're kind of right at the bottom and not really benefiting. from like when they, because it was 7.5 million. Now we've got it up to 17.5. We're trying to push to the full 60 because there are expenses tied that are unique to rural school districts that other districts don't have.
Understood? Okay. Thank you.
Interesting. Anybody else, any questions? Okay. Do you want,
You can, if you want, you can move it by consensus if you want.
if we have no objections, then we will move this forward with consensus. Are we all in agreement?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
All right, so
Off
we'll
you
put
go.
our name on the list of supporters, endorsements, so thank you all.
Thank you, Tina. That's a great thing to do.
Tina, when do we find out about that? When's the decision made?
For this, so we're going to start on the state level, we're going to start the advocacy, once the FY25 budget gets approved on the state, once it makes it through the Senate, because Senate and House are taking it into their joint conference committee at the moment. So once they settle on their budget, it goes to the governor, then she has to decide, does she agree with it? If she does, she'll sign off of it, and we'll be done with FY25. Then we're going to move to FY26. So all of that, then that whole cycle begins, and probably about March of next year is when we'll start to get an idea if folks are on board with the 60 million, are they going to try to cut it again? We just want to be in front of them as much as possible.
Sounds
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Our next item is the workshop topic discussions. Our workshop is scheduled for July 31st. And we just wanted to put this out there to get some ideas to see if there's any hot topics on our minds right now. Our workshop is where we're going to sit down and talk about our goals. We're going to do a little bit of housekeeping. And we're going to come up with, it's like a learning session that we want to do. And it should be tied to the goals that we're going to be creating that day as well. So we're going to try and throw some ideas out there. And Tina and I were chatting already a little bit, and some of the ideas that we had were looking at things surrounding mental health. Mental health has been a big topic over the last few years, especially ballooning up within the last 12 months, not only just our students, but our staff and all of our workers. So that might be something we want to sit down and explore, maybe have the principals come in, talk to us a little bit more about, you know, a day in the life and what do they need for support. Are our students getting everything they need for support, and educating us a little bit more on the different levels, because it's going to be something that all of the school levels should be participating in. There's stressors at every age nowadays. The other thing that we talked about was social media, which also ties into some of that mental health issues as well. It could be a very large topic there. But that's just kind of some of the things that we were tossing around. So just wanted to see if anybody had any ideas, items that might be on their mind.
Just
Yeah.
perspective, what did you do last year? What was the
Housing.
workshop? How was it structured, and what topics did you discuss?
We talked about housing last year, and we brought in a woman from Housing Assistance Corporation, the
Oh, sure.
CEO,
Yeah.
did a video session with us. And then we also did our goals and tied some of our goals into the topics that we had discussed with her, and some housekeeping. But the housing was the big one that we spent most of our time on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we usually come up with 4 to 5, usually about 5 goals as a school committee. Like, what can we support the district on moving forward? What can we explore more? So housing, I'm trying to think of what we've had in the past.
I think we did equity and
Oh, yes.
diversity.
Yep.
Yes,
Um,
yes,
Our strategic plan, portrait of a graduate.
right, yeah. Because the diversity, wait, hold on, I want to get the acronym correctly. Because Bree, I think you sit on the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, Belonging Committee.
I sat
That
on
came out of
those.
one of our school committee goals because we felt, I guess right after 2020, we felt really strongly about putting more energy into those efforts, and that committee was formed out of that goal. So it's things that, what do we feel as a school district is important? Where are we lacking? Where are we making progress, and we want to make more progress?
And we did do the curriculum
Yes.
deep dive.
Yes.
I don't know what we called it.
Yeah, that
But
was-
really digging into, you know, what does the curriculum look like? Are the resources appropriate and up to date for our students and things like that? So a lot of our goals, we work directly with the administrators to find information and learn about it.
To piggyback off of that, just to make sure that we have a proactive approach instead of a reactive approach to the curriculum.
Right, and I think the curriculum, at that time, we were just coming out of the pandemic. So we were realizing, gosh, what do we need? Well, like, so many people we were having to catch up. And so what did that look like, and what changes needed to be made? And so that kind of came out too.
And I do have a question. As you progress with these things like DEI and curriculum changes, how do you audit it? How do you see if it's changing and it's working, and do you readdress it? Because it's something that takes a time to do. You can't just do it for one goal. It's an ongoing process.
That's actually very good.
And it creates,
Yeah.
well, okay, sorry, go ahead.
So many times it's a continued goal. So as far as the DIBEC committee, it originated as an equity task force from one of our goals, and from the equity task force, the DIBEC committee was created. And so sometimes it takes a couple years and we just continue to add to the goal or adjust it so that we can continue to do the work.
And it grows and it changes as we need it to.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of a living.
Go ahead.
It's not just a one and done.
And
Correct.
that's what I was trying to understand,
Correct.
because when you change the goals and you haven't fully addressed the prior, I was just trying to see how you audit it and make sure that it is growing and living and not just in theory.
Yeah, and if there's something from the prior year that hasn't been completed, we pull it forward.
Revisit it.
Yeah, keep doing it.
I have a comment, and I think you do too.
Oh, I was just going
No,
to
go
say,
ahead.
also Robin keeps us informed as far as the curriculum development and her staff as well.
But if you don't mind, what I'm hearing, Bree, I don't know if you're saying this, but this is what I'm hearing from you. I think as we get together at our workshop and our goals, what I'm hearing, I think you're saying, is a goal could be, and we can discuss this at our meeting, should we engage in an audit? Like, what does that look like? Or could that be one of our goals?
Yeah.
This is where we've come, let's do an audit before we, I don't know. That's something I was kind of hearing in what you were saying, and that could be one of our goals this year, is to pause and do an audit. Or not really pause, but to kind of do an audit of what we've done.
Everybody needs assessment. We don't know
Exactly.
what's working, so we need to
Yeah.
make sure that everything's
Absolutely.
going in the right direction.
Yep. So we've got some good things here. So I think, if you don't mind, I think what we're looking, because what Betty and I need to do is, so we've got one meeting on the 11th, right? And then July 31st is our workshop. So what we want to know, and I realize we are missing a couple of school committee members tonight, because we need to arrange for speakers or people to join us to talk a little bit more about something we're interested in learning more about, to educate us in developing our goals.
I wonder if, administration usually joins us.
Correct.
So I wonder if there's a way to kind of have some information about where we stand with some of the goals from the DIBEC committee, some of the changes in curriculum. I think we could probably get an update from admin as to some of the big needs of our district, and we could kind of plan our goals around what the needs are that the administrators are seeing. Maybe?
Yeah.
Possibly?
Nothing to say. So Robin Millen, Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment, we're happy to do an update. My team is doing an update on curriculum at the next meeting, so you'll have that update on the curriculum instruction and assessment parts, including the roles of the new directors and their outcomes from this year and our goals and our reflections of our assessment of how we did this year as well. And then I know Scott and I had also had a conversation specifically related to the DIBEC and some of the assessments that we've been doing since coming back on board. And there was an opportunity to have host a professional development session with this team, with a belonging expert, Dr. Carnapple and Dr. Floyd Cobb. And I know Rose is on the DIBAC, and we're actually engaged in a book club with their equity and their work. So that is something that I'd love to bring forth at that meeting as well. Tell a little bit about what they are offering, what they do. Their programming for their professional development actually starts with the school committee and then works all the way down to the student level. So it is a really inclusive opportunity that we could get involved with over the next few years. again, happy to provide that for you all as well. And then your principals will be here soon, but if you want them there to update on their school-wide improvement plans, we have the implementation plan for the strategic plan that just rolled out, so we have the implementation action steps already done. We can bring that as well.
Yeah.
So depending on how long you want us to talk, we'll have information.
Okay.
Excellent.
All right.
Thank you, Robin.
Madam Chair, is it an understanding that yourself and Tina need time to plan this for the 31st?
Correct.
Because it'll be here very quick.
Correct.
But are we able to make the decision at our next meeting on July 11th of what topics? Only because, we'll get this briefing on the curriculum and also give us an opportunity to just think about if there are any other, things that upon reflection and understanding about now what it is we do,
Right.
may come up with other ideas, but just want to know, is that going to give you enough time to be able to do it?
I'm sure it will.
Yeah, I think it will.
Because we
Yeah.
can reach out to a couple folks and just say, heads up, we might want you here if you're
Yeah.
available.
Yeah, and I think Betty and I, we have an agenda meeting as the chair and the vice chair with the superintendent every 2-3 weeks. And so he already has a sense of some of what we talked about, and we wanted to get all of you weighing in this evening. So I think it will be fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think mental health and social media, I can't think of off my head what's probably more critical, but if there are several topics which we can have, if we can just wait to the 11th, then that just may, that's going to give you enough time, then I
Okay.
suggest we do that.
And if there's something you just want to shoot out in an email to the two of us, just to give us a heads up, and then we can just do a little research if it's something different. It just gives us a little extra time for some running
Right.
room.
Yeah, so I think we'll put this on the agenda again for a follow-up on the 11th. And just be thinking between now and then. The other thing we also, ahead of the 31st, is for all of us to really be thinking about, even though we'll talk more on the 11th about it, be thinking about some goals. Like, what would you, as one school committee member, like to see us do and put our energy behind? Because we'll have an opportunity on the 31st for us all to put our ideas on the table, and then collectively we'll try to settle on 5. Yeah.
Lee just brought up a good point. Normally, our workshop starts at 6.
Yes.
So I just want to make sure that works with everybody's schedule.
On the 31st.
On the
yes.
31st, yes, July 31st.
Does that work for everybody? 6 o'clock for sure. Okay.
Brad's checking, so.
Yes.
That works.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
And that's a Wednesday, by the way. Bree, just for the summer, we tend to lean toward Wednesdays, but we'll go back to, I think, the Thursday in September. Yeah, September.
Just people go away for long weekends and
Yeah.
such over the summer. so.
May I ask a question, Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
So typically, for the workshops, we we normally put you in a smaller location that's a little more intimate. Do you prefer to be here in the library collectively? Is that more comfortable for everybody?
Does anybody?
I
Doesn't
think
matter.
a smaller room
Do you?
personally, but I
Okay.
don't mind.
Do you have-
I
I
don't
have
have
no
a preference.
I don't really have a preference, but I do think about getting warm in a small room.
That's
Yeah, I think it's fine, And then it depends too on who we invite and, that sort of thing. I mean, either way, I'm
So
just
keep it
thinking
here.
of summer and
that's
getting
true.
warm. The other thing, if you don't mind, Madam Chair, for me to mention, the workshop on the 31st is not a public meeting, so it won't be televised, but it is a public meeting in the sense that it has to be posted. And if anybody from the public wanted to come, they can just sit and listen to what we're saying, but it's not like videoed. So it's a workshop for us.
And there's
But
no
it-
public
yeah,
comment.
But there's no public comment. So just so you kind of know that, but the public can come because it's all of us together and we do have to post it as a public.
Did any public come last year?
No, I've never known, for as long as I've been here, I've never known any of our public to come.
But
Yeah.
the offer is made.
Yeah. Oh, well, Cindy, I don't know if I consider you public because you're representing a group, but, but maybe you are.
Okay. Anything else? No? Okay. We will move on to the subcommittee representative liaison reports, and our only committee is the policy committee.
Well, we have, thank you, Madam Chair, we have just gone through 2 of the policies that we discussed last night. We also chose the dates for next year, subcommittee policy group, which are going to be Monday evenings generally. So we've got it all planned out through the next school calendar year.
It's going to go fast.
It'll go fast.
Thank you. Superintendent's report, we have nothing from the superintendent tonight. Our action items have been addressed. We've had the presentation of the warrants. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? All right, 7 o'clock on the dot.
Wow. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.